I gave you the categories. We're going to run through all of them. I'm worried this season because, as you said, there's double every position. It seems like players have their roles. Xavi has a clear idea, which means when I'm trying to figure out how these categories are going to shake out, other than the finishes, we'll talk about Champions League and da-da-da-da-da. But as far as who does this or who does what, it seems like roles are so defined that I think we're going to agree a lot here. And so where we begin, Francesc Tomas, I'm usually going to let you go first on these. It's with the MVP of the team. So at the end of the season, regardless of the winning that was done, don't give that away yet. Who is going to be the team MVP?
So I think that's going to be Pedri. I think that yeah, obviously because the top goal scorer. Hopefully, we've got it covered soon, and I think the answer is very obvious. So I would say that it has been the case over the last, I want to say 18 months, even a couple of years. Pedri is the engine that makes Barca run. For many decades, even it was Busquets. He was at the heart of everything that happened. But with Busquets taking, I'm not going to say a more relaxed role, but obviously he's not getting into the spaces as quickly as he used to. He's not covering as much ground. And I think having Pedri next to him helps him from a defensive perspective, because he, as you mentioned, off-air before with Gavi, he just doesn't stop running. And every single ball is as if his life depended on it. And that's for both Pedri and Gavi. But I think that right now, what Pedri has is a complete understanding of the whole game. If Pedri is a bit naughty, if Pedri runs between the lines, if Pedri can connect with those around him, if he can get people to overlap from the left or even overlap himself, then it is clear that he is the gel that puts everything together. I think that even though we cannot draw many conclusions from the Gamper game, I think that I'm beginning to see glimpses of his connection, especially with Lewandowski, which he was doing. This is Lewandowski was doing a lot of descargas, which are offloading back to the running midfielder that's obviously running from deep. If we can get one or two of those a game, then it is almost certain we'll definitely score one at least. And obviously scoring is the way to win games. So I think that Pedri, from an attacking creation perspective, is poised to be a star this season. But also, I don't want to underestimate the work he does and the effort that he puts in every single thing that goes around him and the impact that he has.
Yeah, it's a shame that I only got to see him about 15 minutes against the Red Bulls, because what I wanted to see in person for Pedri was what he looked like on the press, even in the second half of a friendly game, because his positioning, as you said, is just so smart. And he is the glue. That's what makes him the glue that keeps everything together. It's them on the press. It's how quickly he helps win the ball back, his positioning, his body positioning. For being, as we'll say, small or diminutive as he is, I mean, size absolutely does not matter because of just how intelligent he is as a defender, as a player, and in transition as well. And, I think the first moment that Pedri was kind of on the scene for Barcelona fans was, if you remember, he saved a goal 2 seasons ago when he was still, I think, 16, about to be 17, and he crashes into the post. He winds up missing a few games after that. And that was like a defining moment where he said, oh, this kid, I mean, there's something about it. It's not saying it's not just Gavi, Gavi fights. But I mean, Pedri is so smart in the ways in which he kind of throws his body around when he does. And I remember when I did this show a few months ago with Emil wrapping up last season, and I said, Pedri was the MVP last season, even though he only played 1,600 minutes. And I think I held that against him in the way that, you and I follow the NBA. The MVP for the NBA, we hold that against them when they don't play enough games. And by only playing 1,600 minutes, it was just like, there was players on so many of his teammates played double the amount of minutes he did, or something similar to that. And so it was hard to justify Pedri. But when Barca were at their best last year, where they went on that 13-game unbeaten streak, Pedri was the beaming light. He was coming from the lighthouse. That was Pedri. And just all the other, just like flies, all the other, his teammates seem to just gravitate and follow this 18-year-old player. And I think you're going to see a bunch of that this year as well. He turns 20 now in November. So, at the ripe old age of 20, he's going to be galvanizing this team. He only had 4 goals and 1 assist last season. And I still was arguing to make him the team MVP. That's why this year, I just number-wise, off the top of my head, we're going to guess what? Like 7 goals and like 8 assists or 9 assists, I think. Yeah. And when he's going to score those goals, I get the sense that they're going to be in the big moments. That's where it seems like he's coming up biggest, in those big moments, and seeing him become a big game player. Because, over the last few Champions League exits, that's what Barca have been crying out for, where You know, not talking about the sacred cows here. All the other players in the squad, the transfers that were brought in, even Arturo Vidal, right? Like he was a big player in Chile in those Copa America finals against Messi. But other than that, you know, in the Champions Leagues that he was in with Juventus or with Bayern Munich, you know, he wasn't the player. He was just a part of that system, a cog in the system. But Pedri seemed to just be one of these, just a big time player. Speaking of big time players, our top goal scorer. Okay, we're going to be 2 for 2. I don't think there's going to be any questions here. But yeah, just say the name. It's a few syllables. Say the name.
It is a few syllables. It's actually hard to say sometimes.
Yeah.
So our Polish friend, Robert Lewandowski, I think that is going to be the MVP. No, not the MVP. Well, possibly the MVP as well, but certainly the top goal scorer. I think his demeanor is one of the key differences between the number 9s we've had over the last 4 or 5 years. He does everything, to be honest. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and discover Lewandowski for all of our listeners, so I'm going to be quick here. He associates well. He is ambitious. He's fast. He's strong. He's a quick finisher. Goals are, flowing through his whole body. And I do think, above all of that, he's a winner. He's not 16 years old anymore. So he's come to Barca to win and to win now. And I think that that's something that we need. I think that all the discipline that comes from his years in Germany, certainly and Bayern Munich as well, that's going to help. I think that the degree of professionalism that his persona brings is something that is much needed. I mean, he's a new signing, but obviously he's one of the veterans of the team. And I think that this season, that mixture between young and old is going to be crucial. But I do think that having a role model that is still hungry for more, and I don't want to be dissing Busquets, Piqué, and Jordi Alba, but I think Lewandowski's mentality is a little bit different. He's been winning a lot more recently. And as he said himself, age is just a number. And I think that he could most certainly be a top goal scorer.
Well, yeah, too many people over the last few seasons that have left Barcelona have said there's something about the mentality. There's something about the way that they were practicing, the way that they were fighting, and it just wasn't there. And you're right, Lewandowski. I mean, in the whole show that I did about Robert Lewandowski with Jake, who covers Bayern Munich, that's what he said. His mentality coming in, the guy is a professional. He works on his body, and it's not just for Instagram. He does all the little things, all the little work. He works on it. The harder question here is not whether Lewandowski is going to be the top goal scorer for Barcelona. That I think is the obvious answer. It's how many he'll score. That was the one that I really tried to push myself on. And the number I came up with was 40. That's why I landed on 40, because he scored 50 last season, 48 the year before, 55 the year before that when he won the Ballon d'Or that didn't exist, 40 the year before that, then 25, the 40 the year before that, then 41, 43, 42, and then 25 way back in the 2014-15 season. So 8 years ago, his first year with Bayern Munich, he scored 25 goals. And then the last time he scored less than 25 goals was his 9 in 2010-11 in his first year at Dortmund, when he had just, I believe, I'm trying to do the math here, just turned 21, 22, and jumped from the Polish league to Dortmund. He scored 9 goals that season as he was fighting for a starting spot. And then again, once he got it, he's just been banging in goals every time. So I think the lowest number I could come up with for Lewandowski this year is something goes wrong. Even if he's injured, I think he scores a cool 30 to 32. And then I think the ceiling here is like 45 to 48. And that's why I landed on 40, because I think 40 is just a reasonable number with his first season at Barcelona, not even playing in a different league, but playing a league where scoring is a bit harder to come by than it did in the Bundesliga. Just number-wise, he'll probably score less in the Liga than he did in the Bundesliga. So, yeah, that's why I just went a bit under his previous 3 years total.
Let's hope that you're right. Because, we do have a lot of firepower up front. I would be more than happy if Lewandowski scores around the 30 mark. That's in all competitions, because hopefully we've got not just the one guy that scores all the goals, which I would be happy with as well, but it can be spread out with Dembélé, Rafinha, Aubameyang, etc. So let's see.
Ansu and Bayern. Yeah. So next up is most assists. This one, again, we might agree on the person. I assume we will, but will we be close to the same number? Who's your player?
Well, hopefully these links to Pedri being the MVP. I think he's going to get a lot of assists as well. But in Xavi's system as well, there's a lot of influence coming from the wings. We've got Dembele and we've got Rafinha, who I think, unless anything changes, they're going to be the two starters alongside Lewandowski. Not just because they are good on their own, but actually they're building a society, they're building a connection that hopefully will bring a lot of happiness to culés around the world. I think that because Dembele can be a little bit more anarchic and selfish lately in terms of just taking the shot himself, I'm going to go for Rafinha being the top crosser, assister, because I think that his game, being the first season, may have a little bit more of unselfishness to him. But having said that, I'm perfectly happy with both of them taking as many shots as possible, because we do know that if in football, si no chutas, no marcas. If you don't shoot, you don't score. So having Lewandowski around there to pick up the pieces would also help. So let's get as many shots as possible. But I would say that Rafinha gets more assists than Dembele.
That's interesting. Yeah, because coming from Leeds, you would say obviously it's going to be Rafinha, because he didn't really, I think he had 4 assists total last season. He was their primary goal scoring option. But you're right. Now with Barcelona, we might see an entirely different version of Rafinha than we saw in previous seasons, being able to assist. And you're right too, that Dembele scored 2 goals, I believe, in the preseason, or 3 goals rather in the preseason. And he might be looking to shoot a bit more as opposed to last season when it was all about just trying to set players up. That said, I did go with Dembele. Because I think and this is actually one of the things we learned, I think, from yesterday, one of like the hard and fast rules that we can figure out. Because Ansu clearly is 100% right, and people are already saying, oh, he's overrated. You see if obviously the dogs are coming to attack. But with Ansu not being where he normally is, there's going to come a moment when he's going to get some form, be clinical again in front of goal. But until he gets his form, he's going to likely be the sub, which is a surprise because I really did think it would be Rafinha and Dembele battling for that right wing spot, and Dembele would start on the left as well. But it seems like Xavi, and this was what I was wondering too, Xavi wants his wingers wide. So you'll notice that in yesterday's game, it was so interesting to me that game began with Rafinha on the left. That experiment lasted 7 minutes and 2 goals. They scored 2 goals, and then Xavi switched it. But then just 2 minutes after the switch, Rafinha assisted Dembele's goal. And then in the 12th minute, they switched it back. And so to me, there is a fluidity that's there. And again, what has become clear is that, as you said, those are the 2 starters right now, Dembele and Rafinha. And whether they're on the left or whether they're on the right is going to change, not even based on the opponent, but it will change throughout a game just to throw things into chaos, because that's what Dembele is. So the number I went with for Dembele is 18 for La Liga assists and then 21 in total, because he led the Liga with 13 assists in 21 league matches last season in around 1,400 minutes. Oscar Trejo from Rayo had 9 in just over 2,000 minutes, and Modric had 8 in just over 2,000 minutes. But everybody else in the top 10 was over 2,600 minutes on in La Liga. I know that's too many numbers I threw at you, so let me summarize it real quickly. That means that in almost half the number of minutes of 7 of the other top 10 assisters, Dembele still had more assists than all of those players in about half the minutes. So even if he scores a bit more this season, if he is on the field, he is going to be contributing assists. So that's why, last year we just, 13 in just 1,400 minutes. That says 18, even if he's a better goal scorer. 18 is a fair number, and then 21 in total. So, all right, next up, we're going to go with superlatives. I don't think we need to do best goalkeeper. If it is Iñaki Peña, something has gone terribly wrong for Marc-Andre ter Stegen, but Iñaki Peña has shown some really good stuff in the preseason, and he's going to be a good backup. And I'm glad they got Neto off the books and his wages, because Peña, if you look at the capology and the number he's at, he is so cheap. Iñaki Peña is so cheap. And an academy goalkeeper that is on very cheap wages and can give you what Peña can give you, that's the perfect situation for a backup goalkeeper. Okay, so we're not doing that. It's ter Stegen. All right, best defender. I want to hear yours, because I had a really hard time with this one. This was the hardest one, I think, of these categories.
It's very hard. And it is really hard because we've signed very well. I don't want to mention them all, but obviously Piqué, last season, he was good. I'm not gonna.
He was maybe the best center back of Barca. Yeah,
exactly. So last season he was good. I don't want to diss him just yet. Obviously his role this season, Xavi has already explained to him, according to the Catalan media, obviously, that his position is probably going to be 5th centre back. Eric Garcia seems to have grown up a lot. I think he's matured. I really like the way that Eric breaks through the opponents when they come to pressure. If you can notice it, a lot of centre-backs in Barca over the years tend to play safe. And I think that the best one at breaking the lines moving forward, which is la última línea de presión, that obviously is Gerard Piqué. But I see lots of things that Eric Garcia has been doing in preseason that is what Xavi obviously wants from him, that is a lot more effective, and I think he's controlled like that. Christensen has started really well. Obviously, someone being signed on a free transfer, you always assume that there's going to be benefits with that. And he's looked very composed, very calm, and the player that we hope that he can be. And obviously, we haven't seen him play too much, but the choice that I'm going to go for, and obviously Araujo is through the roof. I'm not even mentioning him. The guy's insane. I'm going to go for Koundé. I think Koundé could be our best defender of the season, because I don't want to say Araujo, which is most likely what you're going to say. And he was. And I think that what he was doing at Sevilla, Sevilla, let's face it, is a team that plays very differently from Barca. They're a team that are happy to just be attacked and hit on the counter when they need to, not all the time anymore. But obviously not your fastest defender, not your tallest defender, not your strongest defender. But I think that in terms of positioning, in terms of intelligence, and in terms of stature, based on what he's shown internationally and obviously for Sevilla as well, that is someone who fits the Barca style extremely well. And even though he's really not played for Barca just yet, not a lot of minutes anyway, I'm going to go for him just to prove the amount of faith I've got on someone who, let's be honest, sacrificed a lot more bucks coming from, a lot more British pounds coming from England and Chelsea to be with us. So I'm going to go for him as the best defender of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think Koundé, I mean, he was one of arguably the top defender in the Liga last season, right, in the entire Spanish league. And if he had played for Manchester City or PSG or Real Madrid or one of those teams last season in the Champions League, he would be talked about in even more outrageous terms than I think Chelsea fans were doing. I mean, because Koundé being linked to Chelsea for the last 3 years, it really helped with the English media, right? Like the propaganda that's created when these big English teams are linked with players from the Spanish league. That like raises their profile tenfold. And Koundé very deservingly had his profile raised. I think that he is going to be fantastic for Barcelona. And I think next season, I can almost lock it in that Koundé will be Barcelona's best defender. But I think there will be a bit of an adjustment period for him at the club this season, to the point where Xavi is going to rely on Araujo, really lean on Araujo. We've already seen that. We know that Xavi, he said it to the media. It's not like he's just saying it to Araujo in person. Like, I want to know what Xavi says to Eric Garcia. Like, what are you not doing well? I just say the first thing I would say is, why do you always foul? When the ball is in the air and it's a long ball, why are you constantly fouling the attack with their back to goal 50 yards away? That would be my one question to Xavi every morning for Eric Garcia. Other than that, you have elite line-breaking abilities, as you said, and Eric Garcia is going to get his minutes. And we'll get to a category that might have him later. But as far as just defending, whether Araujo plays as a center back or a right back, his defending is the best on the team. It's too good for Xavi not to have on the field, regardless of where he is. And Xavi said, yes, Araujo will play center back, but he's playing right back at times, especially against the Real Madrids and teams with superior counterattacking abilities and technical abilities, because his passing from the back is not good enough. It's not where it needs to be. It needs to keep developing this year. That said, best defender, and I keep hearing this argument over and over again, they criticize Barca's defenders when they seem to be able to attack well and they don't defend well. And a defender is supposed to defend. And Araujo does that, so he's the pick. The only thing that I think throws him off that mark of being best defender is staying healthy. He's never done that in his career. And even though he's fought through pain, I mean, he fought through a broken wrist last season to be on the field when Barca, I'd say, needed him. So, I mean, he's fought through pain before, but he has these issues with muscle injuries that I'm hoping, as the whole training staff has changed, Dr. Ricard Pruna is back. So, I mean, they've got their medical staff in place that they want. And it seems like even in the spring, the guys who are always unhealthy were healthier, right? And that's a good sign. So, yeah, I mean, let's do quickly. Let's wrap that up, and then we'll do, I don't need to do best midfielder, best attacker. It's Pedri and Lewandowski. So let's wrap up best defender, then we'll move on to different superlatives.
No, you sort of made an aside. I actually made a note to mention at the end of the show, but you've already touched on it, so I may as well just jump now. Injuries is going to be the major hurdle for us to overcome if we want to be successful. I don't want to tirar las campanas al vuelo. I don't want to just be super euphoric just now. But I would say that if we don't really get any major injuries, this team has a very good chance of going very deep and being successful in pretty much every competition.
Well, that's what we're talking about now. That's what we're doing now. So let's jump into it. So we've got La Liga, Champions League, and Coppa Del Rey finishes. So let's do La Liga first.
Yeah, so I would say it depends on whether Dembele, Pedri, Ansu Fati, Araujo can stay healthy for the longer term.
Yeah.
And then if they, hopefully I'm wrong for saying this, but if they didn't manage to do it, and that is staying healthy and playing on a regular basis, then it would depend on how well, hopefully Marcos Alonso, but yes, Koundé and the different signings we've had actually adjust. In terms of just throwing a number out there, well, we should certainly be in the top 2 for La Liga. I think that we've got a very mighty attack now. I hate the word mighty, but that's the first one that came. I'm really sorry. my Spanish speaking brain just, the mighty ducks. No, sorry. So I would say that the Barca attack is strong enough to churn out a lot of goals. I'm going to go as deep as saying that we've got a lot more depth than Real Madrid, certainly up front. I mean, Madrid with Benzema and Vinicius, if any of them catches a bit of a cold and doesn't play for whatever reason, or misses 1 or 2 months due to injury or whatever it may be, then I think we've got more goals than them. I really trust that, especially, and he may not get many minutes, but if someone like Pjanic ends up staying, I've got high hopes for Kessie as well, to be in a role like Seydou Keita used to do back in the day. I think that we've got a very strong midfield, and we've already spoken about the back line. So I think that we could very possibly win La Liga this season if injuries allow us to do so.
To that exact point, to add to it, I have them as first in the Liga this season for 2 main reasons. One, under Xavi, bringing in these new signings, Barcelona is desperate to win the Liga. And I think consistently, the mentality of, again, adding professionals like Koundé and Lewandowski, that's going to propel this team forward into getting that trophy, because they want to win at the Camp Nou. It's going to be full again with the most fans they've had in that stadium in 4 or 5 years now, we're talking about, from week to week. And I think that's going to galvanize this team forward to win the Liga. And the other thing too about the injuries, you named the perfect players, right? You named Ansu, Dembele, Araujo, and Pedri, who've all been worries throughout their early careers so far. Well, Dembele's 25, but throughout their early careers. The counter argument to that is that the players they brought in, Kessie, Lewandowski, and Jules Koundé. Now, Lewandowski did get hurt last season, which knocked Bayern out of the Champions League, but he was out for, it was like 3 weeks, and it just happened to be the most important 3 weeks of the season. But Lewandowski, Koundé, and Kessie, they do not get hurt. Looking at their injury history, those 3 players are available week in and week out for every single game. They do not get hurt, those 3 players in particular. So bringing in players that have no injury history, and of course, bad luck happens. I mean, of course, bad luck happens in the sport. But again, there are players that have been dealing with injury histories their whole careers, and there's ones who aren't. And bringing in players who just you expect to be on the field, that's going to pay dividends, I think, in the league. Okay, next one is Champions League finish, and I'm going to go first on this one. I had them winning the Liga, but I'm going to go with the quarterfinals on this one. And it has less to do with Barcelona and more to do with everybody else around world football. I think the teams that were already fighting for that Champions League, with the top of the Champions League last year, almost every team in the big, we'll say the big 6 or whatever, the big 8, that are fighting for the Champions League trophy this year, or the favorites to win that trophy, they've all enhanced their squads as well. They've all gotten better. The elite of world football, and this is what happens when you have especially COVID, where the finances of the big clubs and the smaller clubs and these big brands and the ones who can't afford it, like, it's just, the gap is even more wide, I think, between the top of the Champions League and lower. You and I'm not going to bring it up, but yeah, I'll just say the 2 words, Super League. When you and I talked about that before, I mean, we kind of started to feel this was coming, especially with COVID, and just extrapolating that out a few years, now 2 years on, again, I think the Champions League competition at the top is so good. So in Barcelona, if they do get knocked out of the quarterfinal, they're going to get knocked out by a very, very, very good team. That says very little about Barcelona, and it says more about how Barca are in basically year 1 of Xavi, right? It's going to be 1.5 at that point, but basically year 1.5 of Xavi's program. And I know Lewandowski is in 34 years old, wants to win. I get all that, but I think this is going to take a little bit of time in the Champions League to be there for that night. But this team is what I do want to tell you is in that quarterfinal, they are not going to wilt the way that they have. That Champions League exit this season, regardless if it's in the quarterfinals or the semifinals, is not going to happen in the same fashion that Barcelona fans are getting smacked in the face and becoming a meme. No, it's going to be hard fought, and they're going to go down the right way. I say that in quotes unquotes because there's no right way to lose in Champions League without obviously Barcelona becoming the laughing stock of world football for a week. But either way, I think it's going to be a hard fought season in the Champions League, much better than what we've seen for all these years recently.
I cannot really disagree with much of what you said, but my flip of that is if they make it to the quarterfinals, which unless there's something tragic happening, I think we should do, then the differences in the top 8 of world football, like you were mentioning, are so narrow that a hungry team...
Totally fair.
Yeah, so the differences are so narrow that a team that has got so much hunger, if they get a good momentum in the last 2-3 months of the season, I think we could go all the way. I mean, realistically, I would be pleased if they made it to the top 4, to the semifinals. But, I don't really see over 180 minutes. If we can change the mentality and we can endure difficult moments, then I don't really see Barca losing to anyone at this stage, to be honest. So for me, a top 4 finish it would be good. But I wouldn't discard them winning the whole thing at this stage, given the squad that we have, given the hunger, given the momentum, and given the manager that we have that, seems to be putting everything in the right place, not just in terms of players and formation, but I'm talking, as you've already touched on, medical, media, support, the President Laporta, etc., etc., etc. I think that this season, it feels like the pieces are finally being put back together in every aspect of the club. Don't want to go too much into this, but over Barcelona, Catalonia, there's a renewed air of optimism that reminds me of when Ronaldinho joined the club all of those years ago. And there is, as you've already touched on as well, hunger. And I think that the players can make us all proud. And I wouldn't discard them to win the Champions League either. So let's obviously see what happens.
All right, but Francesc, more importantly than the Champions League, of course, is the Spanish Super Cup. That actually didn't even send you on the preliminary list of topic we're doing, because I'll be honest, after the Gambit Trophy yesterday, I've done those YouTube history lessons, whatever, about the Gambit Trophy, the Spanish Super Cup. I care about the Gambit Trophy more than I do because of what it represents and what it means and what it's always supposed to mean, more than I do about the Spanish Super Cup, especially the way that they're just playing all over the world now. So for the Spanish Super Cup, here's my prediction. I'm saying they're losing in the final, that being Barcelona. They lose in the final to Real Madrid, and that's their one loss to Real Madrid of the season. And that one I'll take, because if they won the Liga, then I'm saying they've probably gotten some points off of Real Madrid this year. And so I'm going to say the one time they lose to Real Madrid this year is in the Spanish Super Cup in the final, and I'll take it. I don't care about that. It's January.
Okay.
I actually don't even know what time it is this year. I mean, obviously someone will easily correct me. I didn't even look up what time of the year, because I was saying, well, when is it this year? Because usually when they have it, it's interrupting the league and all that stuff. But there's a World Cup interrupting this entire year this year. So, all right, I don't care about the Spanish Super Cup. I mean, why don't you give that prediction while you give the Coppa Del Rey prediction and do it together?
I really do not care about the Spanish Super Cup, whether it's played in Saudi Arabia or Congo or Mars.
But I do care if you watch my tutorial. You watch the tutorial of it. Did you watch the history of it? See why it used to matter, and now it doesn't matter so much anymore. That's the argument.
Yeah. Watch all the YouTube videos that Dan makes. He's a genius. And he's incredibly handsome too.
Thanks.
But I don't really know about the Super Cup. It doesn't bother me one bit. So I go with your prediction. I'll copy you. How about that?
Yeah, well, okay. What about the Coppa del Rey then?
Coppa del Rey, I would say if we win La Liga, that may be a competition that we drop earlier on. But the other flip of that is that and it links to what I said before, if we've got enough fit players in terms of injuries are respecting us, then Barca's second 11, I'm not even going to call it the B team, Barca's second 11 could go really long in that competition. More than winning it or being knocked over in semifinals or whatever, what I really do hope is that the youngsters and the non-regulars get plenty of playing time in the competition. And, going deep in La Copa del Rey doesn't affect the stamina and hunger and willingness to get La Liga, which obviously is the biggest trophy of the season, is el Campeonato de la Regularidad. So I think that being regular in La Liga is more important. But if the B team, second 11 of Barca, can get us all the way to the semis, then we could win it too. But I'm not really too bothered about that, because hopefully we do better in the other two bigger competitions, which is La Liga and the Champions League.
Well, there's two truths I think we know about Barcelona in the Coppa del Rey. One is that Barcelona do tend historically to use positive results in the Coppa del Rey, which is a knockout competition, to galvanize themselves in the second half of the season, even in their worst, the darkest years, right? Even the Koeman year, the Koeman year rather, when Barcelona had to come back through Jordi Alba, the magic of Jordi Alba against Granada, that galvanized that team that it could have slipped and been even worse than they were in the Liga. And so the Coppa del Rey, I mean, you look at who's won the most trophies in that competition, even though it was historically even the Cup of Franco for a long, long time. Barcelona take pride in winning the Coppa del Rey. They're the team that says that matters, right? It's Real Madrid fans that are always saying it doesn't matter as much, blah, 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 Champions League or Coppa del Rey. But Barcelona has won that competition more than anybody else. And I also had them failing in the Champions League. That's why I have them winning a double this year. As you said, I think they're the deepest team in the Liga, which means they have the most likely chance to win Coppa del Rey. So that's why I'm going with the Liga and Coppa del Rey and having them failing in the Champions League, unfortunately, but again, in a better way than normal. So, all right, back to the players here. The best new signing. And I think basically we're the same person, but then I think there's an easy backup as well. I don't know if there's a backup. Yeah, go.
I don't know. As the listeners know, we don't speak to each other before the recording button starts. So I'm gonna go for Rafinha then. I think Rafinha reminds me of you don't want to put labels on players, but he's got bits of Ronaldinho in him. Like he attempts little flicks, but not just that. You see the way that he conducts himself. He seems to be really relaxed, really happy, cheerful. Around everybody within the dressing room. The Camp Nou connected with him straight away. The couple of goals that he scored back in the USA, they were just in a spectacular fashion. But not just that, he's just a player that's obviously going to get a lot of minutes. He's a differential player. I don't want to generalize and say that all Brazilian players are the same, but you've got your Rivaldo, Ronaldinho, Romario, and the list goes on and on. Brazilian players that have made a difference and left a stamp at Barca. And I think that Rafinha is hopefully next in line with those. I have got high hopes for him. And if he understands the system, which it cannot be very different from what he's shown already, he continues to gain the trust of those around him. He's someone who attempts to run at the space, with or without the ball. His dribbling is great. His technique is impeccable. So I think that he's probably going to be our best signing. Obviously, we already mentioned Koundé, so I'm not going to mention that. But I do think that we've signed a differential player that other brick clouds around the world will kick their teeth not having gone for him in a most decisive fashion.
Well, yeah, he only wanted Barcelona. That's why arguably that transfer fee was lowered for that. And speaking to Oscar from a Leeds United supporter, he did mention that the only thing that Rafinha and Ronaldinho have in common is they were both raised in Brazil. They both have, that Brazilian flair, but personality-wise, they could not be more different. Where Rafinha is an introvert who likes to go right home, he eats right, does all the right things, and Ronaldinho had his peak in he had that Icarus moment, but he was also the best Icarus that the world had for like 3 years. And boy, were those great years. So the Lewandowski, I think, is the answer. Again, if we said top goal scorer, potentially team MVP, probably the best signing. The star that galvanizes this team, pushes them forward. But I think the best value signing even was Kessié, because we are going to be slowly talking about him. Even doing these match reviews already in the preseason, he is better at all the things that the Milan fans even warned me about. That they said, hey, people are already saying his first touch isn't very good, but they don't watching Milan games. He's a really good first touch. And that's true. His one-time passing is way better than advertised, because again, I think it's the perception people have of Serie A or Milan or even Kessié himself. And I think fitting in Barcelona's system, he fits even better than expected. Like, he wasn't the defensive midfielder that even I wanted. Like, I had him so far down that list because I didn't want, he wasn't natural to be the successor to Busquets, and he's not in any way. he's an interior in Xavi's system who is so mobile. But again, the thing yesterday that impressed me, as well as all season long, seeing him in person as well, he is so quick, so fast, and makes up ground so quickly that he is never out of position, ever. Like, he's always, yesterday, as I said, Frankie de Jong was going crazy. He was awesome in the second half as that left interior. And Kessié picks up the assist from Aubameyang as the left interior, just switching. And there was some fluidity. And so getting Kessié on a free transfer, that's just a huge move. That is a terrific piece of business that I think we could say that he's the best value signing of the season, that being Kessié. And I think I'm going to have a hard time, other than we also saw in preseason, other than him missing sitters in front of goal when he gets forward, other than that, there are going to be very few complaints about Frank Kessié this year for Barcelona. You got a point on Kessié?
Do you know, people that have been listening to the podcast for several years may remember us talking about Paulinho. Do you remember Paulinho?
Yep.
I used to do the crazy runs from the middle, and
I know Paulinho.
Never really being in any particular position, but always being at the end of it, and also dropping in places you don't expect him to be. That's Kessié was doing bits of that as well, but obviously with a lot more order and a lot more dominio of where he was around. But just wanted to drop that in.
Yeah, I think Paulinho was a bit, not even better, but more likely to arrive late in the box. And at that time, under Valverde, that Barca played a bit slower, a bit more plotting, a bit more vertical to horizontal, as opposed to Xavi's Barcelona, which is vertical, horizontal, diagonal. Well, actually diagonal, I think would be the direction if I had to explain Xavi's system. All right, next one is Academy Breakthrough. This one's really hard because I think I'm going to let us go wherever we want. This is our show, so we decide where we go. So, and it's a weird one too, because I think, changing the parameters to our likings. I think the candidates are obvious. It's Alejandro Balde, it's Pablo Torre, even though Torre isn't from the academy. Again, he was a professional player, arguably Racing Santander's best player to get them promotion to the second division last year at 18 or 17, 18 years old. So Pablo Torre, again, is not really an argument, but I guess really I'm saying like best young player breakthrough, best. Here's Gabi and Pedri. We know what I'm saying. Gabi is over the first team. Pedri's over the first team. The only one I would argue, though, that could potentially fit here is Nico, because Nico, came out of the gate in the fall, premieres for Koeman, looks like he has a role as an interior, gets some minutes, then kind of falls off. As I said, under Xavi, it wasn't really working all that much, but he still wound up having more minutes than Pedri last year. He still played a ton, was part of the rotation, was a super sub. But I could argue that Nico this year, when I say breakthrough, I mean that he could, unlike Balde, when I say breakthrough to Balde, it means that he's now getting minutes and he could be in the first team in the future. With Nico, he could go from being on the peripheral of the first team. Oh, is he going to go out on loan in January if Piana stays in particular? Or is he going to potentially have to go out on loan next year if he finds himself on the bench and is replaced by whoever it may be, Piana or whatever? But this is a year where if he becomes the successor to Busquets this year, that's the breakthrough we're talking about. This is a player that we're saying, hey, he's a good young player right now. Is he going to be at Barcelona for the next 10 years? And if he winds up really looking comfortable as the backup to Busquets and that's his role, then you're going to go, okay, Nico might be an important part of this team for the next 10 years. So that's why I think Nico is my breakthrough player. But again, the argument is Balde, is Pablo Torre. I think for Abde, it's just an uphill battle. There's too many players in front of Abde for him to get any minutes this year. And other than that, everybody else for Barca B or Barca Athletic, I think it's so hard with how deep the team is. Even Miko Marmol, right? The team is just too deep. Chadi Radi, the left-footed center back, the Moroccan for the B team as well. Like, those are players that are going to do really well for the B team and Rafa Marquez, but its minutes are not going to be there the way they were last year.
Yeah, I think that because there are so many young players that basically in a season 10 years ago, they would still be in the B team. Then it's hard to see who will break through. Like, obviously, Ansu Fati, Pedri, Gavi, they're still really, really young themselves. You can even put Araujo in the same boat as well. I think that if Marcos Alonso is signed, I don't think Balde gets that many minutes, because you're not going to have someone of the caliber or the salary of Jordi Alba and not use him. And you're not going to sign someone like Marcos Alonso and have him on the bench, even though that Marcos Alonso could potentially go as a centre-back. You've already signed lots of centre-backs there, and you're talking about Piqué being fifth choice. So I don't see many minutes for him. So my breakthrough youngster of the season is Gavi.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why, and this is a weird category. Like we're changing. Gabi's already arrived. He's already here. Like
that's it. Yeah,
so he's already here.
That's it.
Yeah.
So my breakout youngster of the season is Gabi. And as you mentioned, I'm going to repeat what you said. I do hope that Nico stays in the team and that he gets hopefully around a third of starts, probably a bit more, but around a third of starts from Busquets, so that Busquets is fresh for the matches that really do matter. And Nico begins to deputize and grow in stature, maybe coming in the last 20, 25 minutes. And, I'm not discovering the world of football here, but we can now make 5 substitutions. And I think that we need to use them to make sure that as many players within the squad feel a true part of the rotation.
Yeah, I mean, there are years in the Coppa Del Rey when Barcelona are having a hard time. I actually think back now. This is dating myself a little bit here with the academy, but Frank Beck, was it Bagnac? I think was his name. He was Brazilian center back. So that class, that group, I think it was like 2014, 15, 16. Barca B didn't really have many young talents breaking through that were that good, right? It wasn't just that Roberto and Bartra and Montoya had nobody following them. It's just like there wasn't a lot of high-level talent coming up through the academy at that time because that was like the De La Feu group, right? And they just, it wasn't that deep. But for the Copa del Rey, when there are rotation minutes, you're going to see players that, if this was last year even, could arguably be breaking in because Barca B this year, or Barca Athletic, is basically going to be the U19s from last year. So Barca B is, they're going to be bad. They're not going to get results, but they have a lot of high potential players. I mean, and there's a difference between the B team doesn't always have a lot of high potential players. Again, I always want to preface that, right? And this season, I think they do. I think they do have a lot of high potential players that are going to get Copa del Rey minutes that will matter for their careers. And we could see them down the line. It's just, again, with how deep the team is now, will they ever have minutes? And minutes, that's our next category. Most minutes on the team, Francesc. My answer, I think, is really going to upset people. Do you know who I'm going with?
Sergio Roberto?
No. No. I mean, if
I think that would have said loads of people.
Yeah. Something has gone horribly wrong if Sergio Roberto. I mean, he's going to get a lot of minutes. What I will say is Sergio Roberto is going to get more minutes than everyone is happy about because he's probably the starting right back. Is he the starting right back? I think he might be. So just warn everybody.
For me, he's not. For me, Koundé and Christensen stay in the heart of defense, and Araujo plays on the right.
Right.
I wouldn't start Dest, and I would not start Sergio Roberto. But anyway, I think we digress. Play with the most minutes, Ter Stegen. Hopefully he stays healthy, and if he does, he's going to play all the minutes.
Well, what about the outfield play? Well, yes, Ter Stegen was second on the team last year with 4,140 minutes. So you're correct. Ter Stegen also got hurt last year. He missed the start of the year. Then he missed a few games in the middle. So if Ter Stegen is healthy, yes, it's Ter Stegen's the goalkeeper, and it should be a goalkeeper. But other than that, yeah, we'll do outfield player. That's the actual answer here.
I'm gonna go for Koundé again.
Interesting.
I think that if he's fit and he adapts well, which touch wood, there is no reason for him not to, because he knows La Liga inside out. Was the best defender in a lot of categories that obviously matter for brainy people with numbers like yourself. Then I do think that Koundé could be replaceable, and I do think that given his, again, touch wood, given his injury, staying healthy record over the years, hopefully that is someone who can be in our team every single week, every single game.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because coupled with my best defender, I said Araujo, but Araujo did only play 2,940 minutes. So he was under 3,000 last year. So yeah, right. But I can't have Araujo there. But I think there's too many center backs for me to have picked a center back here. I just think the rotation is going to be so heavy with, again, it's Christensen and Garcia and Araujo and Koundé. And then I get Alonso, as you said, is in the rotation as well. He could play as that left center back because, again, all the names I just mentioned, they're all right-footed players. And Xavi doesn't seem to care about that. It doesn't seem to matter. Again, Eric Garcia has been so much better as a left center back under Xavi than he has almost any time he's played as a right center back. I think for me, the answer, other than Ter Stegen, of course, is between Lewandowski and Busquets, because Alba had 3,500 minutes plus last year, but Busquets and Lewandowski, obviously for Bayern, they are the only other two players who had over 4,000 minutes. And the way I say my personally going to upset people is I think with Nico or Pjanic, either way, the backup to Busquets is much more defined this year. So Busquets is not going to hit 4,200 minutes. I think he could hit 3,900 minutes. But with how deep this team is, I think 38, 39 might be enough to be the outfield player with the most minutes. So that's why Busquets, I think he's going to potentially start the second most number of games just behind Lewandowski and Ter Stegen. And so Lewandowski with just over 4,000 minutes last year, he had 4,006 minutes. So literally just over 4,000 minutes. I think Lewandowski is also a fair argument here, especially if Busquets gets rotated a bit. And I think Xavi's going to want to keep both of those guys healthy. So he'll rotate them more than we've seen in past. Again, they're also a year older. They're also both 34 years old. So I think I'm pretty loose on Busquets, but I'm going to lock it in that I think Sergio Busquets is going to surprise people. But once again, we're talking about injuries. That guy does not get hurt. He is always available and he can play 90 minutes. Always. Is it great? Sometimes it's not, but he can play minutes every single week. All right. So player, we got 3 categories left. Player who will underachieve. We have about 10 minutes to do this, Francesc. So let's do it. Player who will underachieve. Quick one.
I am between Ferran Torres and Ansu Fati, to be honest. I would say Ferran Torres underachieves.
But what's expected of him? Like he had 6 and 6 last year coming over in January. Because the next category, this pairs nicely. The next category is the player who will change minds in a positive way. And so, Ferran Torres, I would actually put at that list where I think the Catalan media is different than Twitter and the internet, right? Because I can tell you, napping on the internet,
very different.
I can tell you that if Ferran Torres scores a goal and an assist this year, that the internet is going to say, wow, he did better than I thought, because they are out. It seems like a swath of 14-year-olds who have thumbs that type very quickly. They all hate Ferran Torres already. So I don't know what the expectations for him are. So I think it's hard.
Well, I'll tell you the expectation from a Catalan perspective.
He's the fifth forward, though, right? Isn't he? He's the fifth forward. Yeah, it's Lewandowski. It's Lewandowski, Dembele, Rafinha. Then I think the expectations for Ansu are higher than Ferran Torres. So now you're talking the fifth attacker as far as expectations.
No, the expectation is we pay 50 million euros for him. So I don't know if this is the mentality outside Catalonia, but the expectation is we pay 50 million euros for this guy and he needs to deliver at the level that 50 million euros gets you. If we're paying 50 million euros for Lewandowski and he's performing, and we're obviously doing hypotheticals today, but being the top goal scorer, then 50 million euros for Ferran Torres should bring you something similar. This is obviously someone who is still really young, but he was bought for superstar price, so he needs to deliver superstar minutes. Ansu Fati is someone from our academy. We paid 0 for him, so even though his salary is higher, from a Catalan's perspective, he didn't cost us any money. So I would say that if I had to pick one in the squad that doesn't meet the expectation that comes with this price tag, I would say is Ferran Torres. I hope to be really wrong. I really wish him all the best. But that's where my heart takes me right now.
Yeah, I think Ferran Torres, if those are the expectations, then I think he's a clear favorite for that. And same thing with Ansu Fati, that there's a way that he doesn't fall out of the rotation, but is kind of a super sub. And it might take him a lot longer to come back than we thought. I mean, that's what I was warning. He's missing part of his knee. He's out for almost 2 years. Yeah. So it might take him a while to get back. And I think the only other real big candidate here is, I mean, honestly, Jordi Alba was really good last year. And there's a way that Jordi Alba, especially if Marcos Alonso comes, that he, that even his salary being as big as it is, there's a way that Jordi Alba has, his minutes pushed for the first time since he arrived, since he arrived. And the other argument, and then the other one would be PK. But again, if he's the fifth center back and we're going in with that understanding, then I think he'll play like a fifth center back and he'll be Barca's best fifth center back in 10, 15 years, right? Like if that's their fifth center back. So it's hard. Again, it's based on expectations there. Then players who will change minds. I think the candidates here, again, based on the way people are perceiving them right now, is Ferran Torres. It's Eric Garcia. I don't think Sergio Roberto could do anything possibly. Like the guy would have to score 40 goals for to have people change their minds on him. And then Dest being the other one. And I don't see how Ferran and Dest change minds. And so again, I'm digging my heels into the Eric Garcia thing, because not to say that I'm not tooting my own horn, but Xavi seems to be behind this guy in the way that I supported this guy from the minute he showed up. I said, hey, I know his defending is raw. He's 20 years old when he arrived. And, he came on a free transfer. So everybody just relax. The things he does well, he does an elite level. And now we're seeing in year 2, if he can just refine his defending, or in Xavi's system, when Barca have 73% of the ball, that means that we're worried for 27% of the time about Eric Garcia. And if he can be a great defender for 27% of the time in a 90-minute game, then he's a great center back because he does the passing and the offensive part of it, again, at an elite level. So who's going to change your mind, you think, Francesc? Well, maybe not your mind, but, the fan base's mind this year.
I'm going to copycat. I think Eddie Garcia, because of the reasons that you mentioned and the ones that I mentioned at the beginning of the show.
All right. And so last category here, player to score. This is, again, in quotes, unquotes, biggest goal of the season. Because, and last year, I was thinking about last year. It's interesting. Last year was probably the Ansu Fati goal against Levante in his return, maybe. Or it was the Pedri goal versus Sevilla in April. It was a big game. Barca needed that game to finish second, and Pedri scores that goal. And then you have Luke de Jong against Levante in stoppage time, because that was the one that sealed second place a week later after the Sevilla game in late April. And then, of course, the Aubameyang header against Real Madrid was something too. That one, just heading the goal in, taking that 1-0 against Real Madrid, feeling like a Clásico was about to be flipped to Santiago Bernabeu. And then it was. Obviously, scoring 4 kind of dilutes it. But, there were different candidates last year for all different reasons, because it was more of a, transition sentimental year. But this one is going to be like the biggest game, the biggest goal in the biggest game. We're talking like Iniesta against Chelsea. We're talking Messi at the Bernabeu, right? Like, that's the goal that we're looking for this season. If they're going to play in big moments, in big competitions, that means you're going to need a big goal in one of those moments.
Yes. I think the biggest game of the season will be Ricky Puig on day 4 playing against Kansas City. And then he's going to Instagram all of it.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think my pick was MVP for Pedri, so I'm going to rely on that. And I'm going to say one of Pedri's 7 or 8 goals this season comes in a huge moment in El Clásico, in the Champions League. So
let's hope so.
I think it's going to come on the foot of Pedri this year.
Let's hope so. Let's do that.
All right, friends. So with a lot of hope, a lot of predictions, obviously we're going to be right, as we always are every year. We're always right about all of our predictions.